This is video number 13 for me, Karen Moon. It is all about daily life in Japan. The sort of things that I've been doing over the past 10 years, but particularly just regular daily life, what it's like to live here, how it's different from living in the UK. I grew up in a small city in England that was basically like a giant village, and then I lived in a city in the middle of England called Birmingham, which was like a giant hell, I guess, is a polite way of putting it. Birmingham is a disgrace, or at least was. I hope it's improved a bit. Daily life in Japan is wonderful, really. It's a country that happens to suit me very well. I'm a quiet person. I live in a suburb of Tokyo, so I live in the western suburb of Tokyo. When you see Tokyo on TV, outside of Japan, you usually see an area of Tokyo called Shibuya, which is famous for this epic pedestrian crossing, which is an 8-way pedestrian crossing. So if you can imagine, there's like a crossroads, and then at 45 degrees, there's another 2 pedestrian crossings going over it. So when you see Japan and a sort of stock footage of Japan, you're always seeing that, and that crossroads, which is just by Shibuya Station, is surrounded by TV screens on the sides of buildings, some of the biggest TV screens in the world, in fact. I live 35 minutes west of there, but I live in an incredibly quiet place. I live in a very typical Japanese house. Houses here tend to be about 30 years old, then they knock them down. This house should be knocked down, but I'm definitely not going to do it because we don't have any money to replace it, and it's relatively comfortable for us. So I live here with my wife and my 2 children. At least before my cancer, I was working from home. I'm going to now find different ways to work from home. I was teaching English here, so private students would come to my house and I teach them English, and I've got a little classroom here. I'm going to maybe start doing some kind of online business, because one thing I do is I've been teaching entrepreneurship and doing some consulting for small businesses, so that's something that's very easy to do online. I will no longer be able to work kind of even a semi-regular schedule, because at least at the moment, however long I survive for, I'm going to be having chemotherapy every couple of weeks, and the chemotherapy is cumulative in terms of side effects, which means it gets worse each time you get it. The side effects get worse, but the side effects also last longer, to the point where you have your chemotherapy, you spend a couple of weeks getting over the side effects, and then it's time for the chemotherapy again. So I'm going to be quite limited on what I can do, and my time when I'm kind of feeling fit and able to do things is going to be irregular and random. So life in idyllic Japan. Japan is a country that is 5 or 10 years ahead of most other developed countries. So basically, the things that you have now in the UK, in the USA, or whatever, we had 5, 10 years ago. When I first came to visit Japan in 2001, it was, I think, the first country in the world to roll out high-speed internet. We had very high-speed broadband. Was just blanketed the whole country. The Japanese do not muck around when they implement new technology. It just spreads everywhere quickly. They do little trials, and if it seems to work, they just spread it out everywhere. The transport infrastructure here is amazing. Why does that seem like a big deal? Well, it's because there are layers and layers of different train systems here. So if you're in an urban area, you're often 5 minutes walk from a train station. I'm 3 minutes walk from my nearest train station, and the trains are very affordable here. On average, I'd say they're between a third and half of the price of in the UK. In America, there are basically no trains. There are some American cities have subways, although they're very, very limited. There's a train system in America called Amtrak, which is I've travelled on it and I enjoyed it a lot, but there were times when the train was going at walking pace, basically, because Amtrak trains are not set up for people. The whole system of Amtrak is actually for moving freight around the country, and they just happen to put some carriages for people there. In Japan, we have the most modern, efficient train system on earth, and it makes a huge difference. It really does make a huge difference because, however you're feeling, you can jump on a train and go somewhere, and you're going to arrive fresh. As opposed to England, whenever you travel on train, it's quite an ordeal, especially coming from where I grew up, Norwich, which is the end of a line, and the 2-hour journey from Norwich to London, which should only take an hour on a sensible train, but takes 2 hours or even longer. You come off that train feeling pretty bad, really. It's not nice. So, just living here with this amazing infrastructure, a lot of companies here do same-day delivery with no delivery charge. So, let's give a silly example. The wireless doorbell button uses a battery that, technically a cell, that I can't buy in a local shop, but I can order it in the morning and it will arrive in the afternoon or evening, and it costs £1.50 or something, and there's no delivery charge. I mean, that's just, that's living in the future. Come on, that's amazing. I love the people of Japan. People in different countries are very different. In some countries there's a lot of diversity. In Japan there's a lot less diversity, which, yes, is certainly a bad thing. The people here are very homogenous. Almost everyone here is what they call ethnically Japanese. When I'm in my less charitable moods, I point out that Japanese people originally Ainu people from the north of Japan, and they are not related to modern Japanese people who are so Chinese Mongolian. But I probably shouldn't have mentioned that in this video. But the Japanese are very enthusiastic people. I'm a deeply, deeply, deeply cynical person. That hasn't really changed in Japan. I'm still incredibly cynical about the world and about the people in it, but it is lovely to be surrounded by massively enthusiastic people. And the Japanese are so helpful. They are so, so helpful. Hospitality here is seen as one of the highest virtues, looking after guests. They're proud of their culture, they're proud of their country, and they're very, very hospitable with it. And especially for me, I don't really speak Japanese. I can understand Japanese pretty well now because I've just lived in Japan for so long. I can speak tourist Japanese. I can go shopping. I can travel around or whatever. But yeah, my Japanese is pretty poor, and the Japanese go out of their way to help me so much. And obviously, over the past 2.5 months, I've been getting very, very special help because I've been going to a Japanese hospital and speaking to various doctors and things. All the doctors and the consultants at the hospital speak pretty good English, and I'm very lucky that the hospital I'm currently at, a couple of the nurses speak great English as well. Japan is a country that you have to come and experience, but for yourself. It's far, 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 far cheaper than people make out. I get very irritated when I see these rankings where they say Tokyo is one of the most expensive cities in the world to live in. That's utter nonsense. That's just bad statistics. They're cherry-picking statistics, basically. Japan is far cheaper as a country to live in than the UK, for example. And travelling here is pretty cheap. Please do come to Japan. Get in contact with me first. I will do everything to make sure you're taken care of by me and other people. And you'll have a great trip here, even if you can only spend a week here or whatever. You're going to see a different way of living, and you're going to see a glimpse of the future, because Japan has got a lot of stuff right. There are lots of things I don't like about Japan, but overall they've got a lot of stuff right. It's a very, very, very high standard of living here, and it's actually only 8 o'clock in the morning, but I did wake up at 4 o'clock again. I managed to go back to sleep, but I'm still pretty tired. The reason I'm persisting with these videos is that with my next dose of chemotherapy, I'm going to be taking the medicine that gave me this skin rash, and it's going to be 100 times worse than you can see now, and it's going to be incredibly painful. So I'm doing these videos now. Please do come to Japan. Contact me first, and I can help arrange aspects of your trip, find accommodation for you, maybe even find, if money's tight, I can find people you can stay with or whatever. But please come. It's only, if you're in England, it's an 11.5 hour, 12-hour flight or something. And there are often cheapish aeroplane tickets available. And then you'll see what an amazing country it is. It's a temperate, no, I don't know, could you say it's a temperate country? The winters tend to be pretty cold here. The summer is uncomfortably hot, but spring and autumn are very similar, I guess, to a good English summer. So when you have a nice long English summer, we get that twice a year. We get that in from sort of September to sometimes early December, really. So you've got September, October, November of a good English summer, and we also, spring is like that as well. Let's say April, May, June, July, whatever. So we basically get the equivalent of 2 good English summers every year. Winter is cold. Winter is very dry. Summer is very, very hot, very, very humid. But please do come and visit. You'll see things that you could never imagine, and I'm confident you'll love it, even if you've never travelled outside of Europe before, or even if you've never travelled outside England before. Thank you so much for watching. Please, if you can, visit my website, www.matthewdons.org. Cheers for now. Goodbye.